do that. Okay, so I'm starting to record, even though I already did like 5 minutes of my lesson, but that's okay. I love seeing you guys all cozy in your blankets. It's so cute. I love it. Okay. So hopefully, if anybody needs to pop into the thing, I'll be able to see it again. I don't know. We'll just, or they'll have to wait in the waiting room. Okay, so anyways, I woke up and I just felt depressed. I felt like I didn't want to even face this day, you know? And I started thinking about the stages of grief, and sometimes I feel all the different stages of grief simultaneously all in the same day. You know, I didn't sleep well. I haven't been sleeping well the past month or so since all this started. You know, I read an article about grief and how, you know, anxiety levels are really high during this time. And, you know, I always thought that my times of insomnia came when my schedule was packed so full that I couldn't even like breathe. Turns out that's not the case. It turns out it's just anxiety and I'm not sleeping great. So, you know, it also turns out that I don't necessarily need more time to deep clean my house. Can anybody relate? It's actually, I don't need more time. I just don't want to do it. So there's that. But anyways, I say all that to say about the feeling and all the different stages of grief is like, and I was talking to I've been talking to a lot of sisters about this, is giving ourselves permission to feel our feelings. You know, it's good for us to feel and to identify and not just try to cover them up or sweep them under the rug or numb them, but to actually feel our feelings, you know? And I've been saying this a lot too, is like, give yourself and everybody around you a lot of grace, because we're all going through something that we've never gone through before. You know, my BFF Brene Brown, she says that we are feeling creatures who think. So we feel before we think. And I think that that's really appropriate for this time, is that we've got to let ourselves feel and just don't be too hard on ourselves. So anyways, back to my morning. I was dreading getting up. I was dreading, you know, doing my workout. I finally started doing my little HIIT work, like 20-minute HIIT workouts last week. I got cleared from my doctor with my leg and all that. And but this morning I just didn't feel it. And I was like, you know what, let me go for a prayer walk. Like, I think that's what my soul needs. It took me everything I could to just get out the door and put one foot in front of the other, really. I took a totally different route. I went a totally different direction than I normally do. And just by doing that, I felt like Dorothy and the Wizard of Oz coming into Munchkin Land with all of the colors. Like, I felt like, where am I? This is amazing. And I started to see the world in a different lens. You know, I felt like as I was walking, the scales were just coming off of my eyes. You know, and I don't know what it was. I don't know if it was just, I desperately needed that time with God. Or it might've just been the early morning sunlight, you know, that beautiful glittery sunlight that like comes through the trees and it looks warm and orangey colored. Like, it just made everything just so beautiful. The spring trees with their tiny little buds that are like soft green and almost look like they're velvet, you know, like those, and all the purples and the pinks of the cherry blossoms, and all these trees that are just budding, and the yellows and the whites and the oranges of the tulips and the daffodils, like all these flowers that are just bursting in color right now. And I literally felt like intoxicated by God's beauty and his creation. And he's the ultimate artist, right? He is the ultimate artist. You know, the longer I walked, and I walked for about an hour, and I saw Ashley, she did this like last week, Ashley Conway, I saw her post this on Instagram, like, just to get away. I didn't have the dog. I didn't have the kids with me. We've been taking walks daily, but I didn't have them with me. Like, it was just me, myself, and God. And it was so powerful. But the longer I walked, the more I heard God speaking to my heart. You know, I heard him say, remember how these trees look dead just a few weeks ago? Remember how dry and brittle they were, how gray the world looked? Spring always comes right after winter. I will always prevail. I will always bring you out of the darkness and into my wonderful light. You will not be in this season forever. And that just, I mean, I heard that from God, like speaking to my heart. Did I hear a voice? No. I was just listening to what God was saying around, around me. But faith is hard. Believing in something that we can't see, that's really hard. What does it say in Hebrews 11:1? But faith is sure of what we hope for and being certain of what we do not see. It's hard to believe and trust in a being that we can't physically see. But you know what? It sure helps sometimes when we see his works, when we see his creation just coming alive. And maybe we see him in the goodness of other humans, other people. But it's so refreshing to see him in his creation. That was cool to hear his voice and realize what he was saying to me. Then I came across this sign. I was on a bike trail. I want to see if somebody can read it, if you'll be able to read it. But it was on a chain link fence, and it was a whiteboard, and somebody just randomly wrote, can you see that? No. All right, somebody read it. Everybody's muted.
I think you are doing a beautiful job figuring out some heavy stuff.
Yeah, the sign says, I think you are doing a beautiful job figuring out some heavy stuff. What? Like, God just dropped the mic. I was like, are you kidding me? Thanks, God. Like, I think we're all trying to figure out some heavy stuff right now. Wouldn't you agree? I just felt like, wow, that was really cool. I left the house this morning with my soul so downcast, not an ounce of joy or happiness. I mean, really. And I so badly just wanted to like get connected to God and wrestle things out in my heart. And I came back an hour later, just completely cleansed and encouraged by his words. It's like I needed to just bathe myself in him. And he always, always exceeds my expectations. It got me thinking of this time of seclusion. I don't know about you, but I want to come out of this a different person. I want to be transformed from the inside out. Like those spring trees and flowers, like I want to come out of this dead, dark time completely transformed from within. And so I wanted to share some of the things I've been learning about the book of Philippians. There's tons of content out there right now that's like excellent everywhere. Jake Grock is doing morning quiet times and different ministers all over the country. And I've been watching this series from a brother named Joel Peed. He's the minister at the Chippewa Valley Church in Eau Claire, Wisconsin. His church hosted the small church conference that Mike and I went to last year. And he's doing a Facebook Live lessons, just 10 minutes every day on the book of Philippians and mental health. So I was like, awesome. I want to jump in and learn more about this. So some of this content is like directly from him. So I give him the credit. But first of all, and he encouraged all of us to do this too. I'd encourage you to read the whole book of Philippians. It's only 4 chapters. It's like if you flip too fast, you've already gone through it. So it will only take maybe 30 minutes max. And reading it in different versions really helps to see different nuances that you might skip over reading your favorite version. And so reading it just literally like encouraged my heart so much, just reading it all together, all this, all at once. So what's going on here in the book of Philippians? Paul is writing from a jail cell, okay? And like Mike shared briefly in our lesson this past Sunday, it wasn't like they fed you 3 square meals in jail in the first century. I mean, they literally left you in there to rot and die. And you had to be, your needs had to be taken care of by other people. People would come with food or clothing or whatever you needed. He's also in this jail cell waiting a trial. So will he be set free, or will he go to his death? That's a lot of psychological stress on top of the quarantine and isolation that he's in, right? So why does joy just exude from these pages? It's like his peace and contentment almost seem palpable in the scriptures. I would have never have known that he wrote this in a jail cell if it weren't for commentaries and history telling us this, right? So let's go to Philippians chapter 4. Are you guys all there? It's hard to talk when nobody talks, but I know you're with me. So you can, did you know you could do little, yeah, you could put little like high fives and stuff up. Somebody's writing in the chat. What are we saying? Let's go North River Church, home church. Yes. Oh. Wow. Okay. I just got a prayer request on the side there, so in the chat. Okay, now I don't know how to hide that. Close. Okay, sorry. So Philippians chapter 4, verse 10 through 13. It says, I rejoiced greatly in the Lord that at last you renewed your concern for me. Indeed, you were concerned, but you had no opportunity to show it. I'm not saying this because I am in need, for I have learned to be content whatever the circumstances. I know what it is to be in need, and I know what it is to have plenty. I have learned the secret of being content in any and every situation, whether well-fed or hungry, whether living in plenty or in want. I can do all this through him who gives me strength. Okay. So Paul says that he's learned to be content, whatever the circumstances. And we know from his past letters that Paul had faced a lot of trials. So in 2 Corinthians 1, chapter 1, verse 8 through 9, you don't have to turn there. It's just a reference. Paul says that he faced death and despaired life itself. In 2 Corinthians chapter 11, verse 21 through 28, this is kind of his list, that makes him one bad dude. It reveals all the things that he's been through in his life. He's been imprisoned, exposed to death multiple times. 5 times he was flogged, 3 times beaten with rods, pelted with stones, shipwrecked 3 times, in danger wherever he went. He had sleepless nights, starvation, cold, naked, plus the daily concern on his heart for all of the churches that he had planted. This dude went through a lot. And him learning to be content was built over time with many trials. You know, this pandemic will change us from the inside out. This will define us. You know, if you lived through 9/11, you know that day is like burned in your memory and your heart. And the world was never the same, right? From that day on. For us here, this is our 9/11 moment. The world we know will be changed from here on out. And that's where all that grief comes in. We're grieving what we've lost. We're grieving what we can't have, or maybe the plans that we were looking forward to. We are going through a significant trial. And I think the part that's the hardest to even wrap our minds around is the unknown. So many of us don't know what our future holds. We don't know when this will end. We don't know when we'll get to see our family members. We don't know if we'll have our summer vacations that we planned. We don't know, you know, some of us are thinking of, you know, moving. Like, when will that happen? I mean, there's so many unknowns, right? I think that'll be the part 2 that I'll talk about next time too. But we're going through significant trials. Are we learning through all of this to be content? You know, the definition of content, one of the definitions, is a state of satisfaction. You know, I love this point. Contentment does not require comfort. That was like a direct quote from a book from Charles Swindoll that Joel referenced about Paul. And I think Mike has it. So I'm a book reader, so I love to read. So I'm like, ooh, I want to look and see if he has that book. But anyways, it made me think about, okay, so contentment does not require comfort. It made me think about some of the people that I've had the pleasure of getting to know or meet, Navy SEALs, Marine recon soldiers, guys that have been on the front line, that went through intense training, and like literally you're stripped of everything, and they try to get into your head too. So much so that's their standard of like, if I can get through this, I can get through anything. And there's a sense of like calm. And I'm thinking about the people that I know that were in that were in these positions, but there's this sense of calm and like confidence. It's contentment. You know, they understand what it's like to try to fight for your life. A lot of them, you know, Navy SEALs, they like strap stuff to their boots and drop them in the ocean. They have to get out before they drown, like stuff, like crazy stuff, right? But you know, I was thinking, and they'll tell you it's all in your brain. Like you can get through anything because it's all in your brain. And so if we learn to release the idea that we need comfort for contentment, we'll be so much more surrendered. And think about that. Like, we're in America. We love comfort, right? We love like all of our things that bring us comfort. And I have like 10 blankets here that are cozy, and I wrap up in when I'm cold. And I just ordered like a gel pad for my office chair because my butt gets so sore sitting on this tiny little thin chair. You know, I mean, I want to be comfortable. We all do, right? That's why we're all walking around in yoga pants. None of us have worn jeans in forever, right? I don't know about you, but that's how I am. Belle was like, Mom, it's funny you have a nice shirt on and like your joggers. I'm like, yeah, that's life these days. But yeah, it's the secret to being content is not about comfort. You know, if you go back to verse 13, he says, I can do all this through him who gives me strength. What is Paul's secret to being content? He's saying he's relying on God, not himself. You know, I believe that God is using this time to draw us closer to him. Closer to him. How are you doing in that? You know, I watched another great devotional online from Megan Zielman. She's the women's ministry leader in the Denver church. She did a lesson yesterday about taking stock, like taking stock of our spiritual pantry. What's in our spiritual pantry? And let's take stock of it. And she thought, you know, she was talking about, what is God teaching us during this time? Like, there's so much good that is coming out of me, even, and all of us. But there's also stuff that God is revealing in our character that's not so godly, that is coming out only because of this pandemic, because of the situation, right? So I was taking stock, and for myself, like, what is the good that's coming out of this, right? Definitely more time with my family. I mean, that's a no-brainer. Deep discussions with my kids, with my husband, like really awesome discussions around the dinner table. More time in the Bible for myself, for us with the kids. Long walks together. I've talked about that. Picking up new hobbies. A lot of you guys, I see you guys painting and doing all these fun things. I'm like, this is so cool. I mean, I'm not doing that yet, but I have gone back to Duolingo, and I'm relearning French with Bella, which is really fun. You know, connecting to old friends all over the country, like out of the blue, people are messaging me, and you know, and calling and texting, and people are watching our live streams from different ministries, and that's just been such a cool. I feel like it's made the world smaller in a sense, because we've we have more time and more time online to connect with people. But what has God revealed in my heart that's not so great? I would say how much I envy other people. You know, now I can see inside of everybody's houses, and I'm like, ooh, I wish I had an office like that, and ooh, I wish I had a couch like that, and ooh, I wish my kitchen were bigger, and you know, I wish I had a comfy couch to sit on. Like grumble, 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 not content. The other thing that God has been showing in my character is how much I'm motivated by shame and fear instead of love. Like that shame gremlin that says, you're not good enough. You're just not good enough. And so what do? I try to work harder, or I try to work longer, or I try to strive for perfection. And all of that is so empty, you know? It's wanting to please others instead of pleasing God. And instead of nuzzling up to God and getting my comfort and my strength and my confidence in Him, I pick it from other people, which will always fail, right? We're human, and we're never gonna be good enough, you know? And so I see how God is using this time to help me come to Him for my strength. You know, what about you? What's God teaching you during this time? What's the good that you see that's coming out of this? Like, what are some of the things in your character that you see that are like, wow, I'm rocking this thing. I'm being patient. I'm being kind. But what are the not so good things that you're seeing also? You know, if you go back to Philippians chapter 4, verse 4 through 9, this is becoming some of my favorite scriptures in the Bible. And we'll just read it briefly. It says, rejoice in the Lord always. I say it again, rejoice. He's saying this in a prison cell. Like, that's just unbelievable. Let your gentleness be evident to all. The Lord is near. Do not be anxious about anything, but in every situation, by prayer and petition, with thanksgiving, present your request to God, and the peace of God, which transcends all understanding, will guard your hearts and your minds in Christ Jesus. Finally, brothers and sisters, whatever is true, whatever is noble, whatever is right, whatever is pure, whatever is lovely, whatever is admirable, if anything is excellent or praiseworthy, think about such things. Whatever you have learned or received or heard from me or seen in me, put it into practice, and the God of peace will be with you. What do you hear from that? I mean, you hear His gratitude. You hear how He's not fixating on the bad. He's fixating on the good, right? You hear just like I said, His gratitude that just oozes through these scriptures. And so I think this part 2 will be this section, and we'll pick apart that section more and see how we can apply it to our lives the next time we have Women's Midweek. But I love this. You know, another thing God is revealing in my character is how easily distracted I am. Well, I've always known that, but how much more in this digital world, and how because I'm an avid reader, I'll get, okay, there's a New York Times article about COVID-19, and here's the Atlantic article, and then there's a Washington Post article, you know, like, and one thing I've had to learn, I'm reading the book, The Boundaries, this month, and I'm like, I've got to set more distinct boundaries around reading that kind of stuff, the negative stuff that, I mean, I shouldn't say negative. It's not negative. It's truth, but it can be scary, and it could get my mind thinking and anxious and fearful, right? And I can't do that right before bed. Duh. Like, that seems like a no-brainer, but I do. It's almost like an addiction. Like, I'm just like, ugh. And so that's one thing I've got to set some boundaries on. And what does Paul does? He doesn't focus on the negative. He focuses on the positive and the things that make him grateful. So anyways, as we go into Easter weekend, let's be thinking about what God is teaching us. What is God teaching us about being content? How can you use this time of more isolation, more downtime to draw closer to God? You know, personally, I was thanking God over and over again today about His timing. I mean, sure, none of us are happy about this pandemic thing, but at the same time, I'm just so grateful that it wasn't happening in the dead of winter. You know, I don't know about you, but this winter was hard on me. It was gray. It was cold. And I'm just grateful now that we can go outside and see God's creation and sit outside and get some sunshine. You know, I'm grateful. Um, Anyways, let's be women who rely on God for our strength and learn to be content in any and every situation. So what we're gonna, that's it. What we're gonna do now is we're gonna break into what they call Zoom rooms. And it's the computer determines it randomly who, you know, you'll get in a random group, which will be really cool. So if you don't know the other people in your group, introduce yourself. But I just like you to answer one question. That's it. Because you guys don't need to, you know, write a few things down or whatever. Just answer, what's the one thing that really stood out to you from this lesson? And then share about that. Share about what God is teaching you in your character, what you're learning, you know, whatever, on that same path. But what stood out to you, and share from your heart, share vulnerably, and get to know some people. So let me see if I can do this. Mike was like, if you want, you can come and get me and I'll help you. And I was like, I want to do this myself. That's what I said, but we'll see. So you have to remember, when you go in your Zoom rooms, you're going to need to unmute yourself because everybody's muted. So, okay. So here we go. And then open all rooms. Let's see if it works. All participants have been invited to join breakout rooms. Cool. Are you guys there? Do you see where you're with, who you're with? Okay, so let's see. So Sonia.
Yes.
I think I'm with you.
Oh, good. Yeah. Yeah.
I think it's just the two of us.
Really? Okay. I am content with that.
I know.